Hey everyone, welcome to another video, and today what we're going to be covering is Unsealed Spellbook Galio. Now, in my last Galio guide, I spoke about everything. I spoke about the matchups, the itemization, the rune pages, the identity, everything, but I only really did it in reference to the Aftershock way of playing the champion. Now, I did that guide 6-7 weeks ago before Galio became meta because I had a feeling that this champion was really strong. Now, given the recent rise in popularity of Galio both in solo queue and competitive play, I thought it'd be really fitting to do a whole separate video just highlighting how to properly utilize Unsealed Spellbook Galio because I think it's such a strong way of playing this champion, and I'm personally just a massive advocate for you guys picking up this champion. Now let's begin by breaking down the rune page that Galio takes for this specific strategy. Now before we get into the details and what the trade-offs are and what we take in each row and why Galio takes it in the first place, we really need to understand, at least at a base level, why certain champions take Unsealed Spellbook, because if you understand this, then it's going to make a lot more sense later down the road in the future. Now, generally it's because of one or two reasons or a combination of both. Number one, the champion can actually reliably use a lot of differing summoners. Now, if you think of a champion like Orianna, she can use Ghost, Heal, Exhaust, Barrier, Ignite, Cleanse, TP. So you can use all of them really well in differing situations. This is usually because of their kit, the nature of their kit. It's really hard to kind of explain it otherwise. Certain champions just click with a lot of differing summoners. The second reason is because that champion has a very flexible identity and can be played, I guess, offensively and aggressively to dive the backline, be the main form of engage, go, or they can be played conversely, defensively, sit on the AD carry, peel, front to back team fights. So if you think about a champion like Twisted Fate, for example, you can play, it's actually a combination of both. TF can actually utilize a lot of summoners, but you can actually play Twisted Fate a lot of different ways in mid to late game. You can dive the backline and one-shot the AD carry with your jungler or whatever, or you can play front to back team fights, peel with your gold card, sit on the enemy AD carry, and play the front to back. So these are usually it's a combination of both. But for Galio, it actually is a combination of both. Galio can actually utilize a lot of differing summoners and has a very flexible identity. You can play for peel with your ultimate and your W, sit on your AD carry, or play for dive with your Jarvan jungle, sit on the enemy AD carry and one-shot them with your jungler. Both either work, it just really depends on the specific game that you're within, and Unsealed Spellbook really complements that flexible identity. Now, one thing we also need to understand, guys, and I think I do touch on this briefly in my last Galio guide, but we really need to understand what made Galio go out of meta ages ago, because Galio was a very popular champion. He got one nerf and then no one played him. And the main reason was, guys, is that what you used to be able to do was actually charge up your W and then flash taunt. So your CC was very reliable. When they removed that whole mechanic, everyone was like, well, I'm very one-dimensional now. I can just get kited. They can see where I'm coming from. I can't land any of my abilities. I'm just not going to play this champion anymore. But then what people started to realize was Nimbus Cloak was a thing. Nimbus Cloak got changed and people realized how good Nimbus Cloak was for Galio because it actually solved that problem. Now what you could do is actually flash before a fight or TP into a fight, get that burst of movement speed, which would allow you to close that gap without having to use your E, or in combination with your E to get that taunt off, to get the combo off, to get that person bursted down. So the premise with this specific setup is that you have more access to summoner spells. And summoner spells is the name of the game for Galio because it allows you to reliably proc Nimbus Cloak, which creates more opportunities for plays, dives, whatever it is. So it's a combination of both. Obviously with Nimbus Cloak being such an incredibly strong rune at the moment, this is actually why Unsealed Spellbook is very strong on Galio, and we'll get into more of the details later on in another slide. Now, in the second row here, I talk about this a lot, but I'm just not a fan of perfect timing. The only reason you're going to be taking perfect timing, in my opinion, is if you really need early tier 2 boots in a really hard matchup. So some Galio players like taking perfect timing when you're versing champions like Syndra or Zoe because you want to rush maybe an early Mercs. I personally don't do that because it feels like it's just a very low value rune. It barely contributes any gold towards your Zhonya's. It takes ages to come online, and they actually nerfed the active item CDR as well, so you don't get that either. So it's a very low value rune in my opinion. And the strength of magical footwear, it allows you to dedicate all that gold to your first item spike, because Galio is so reliant on Proto Belt, and more importantly, you actually get a nice bit of extra movement speed with those when you actually do get those boots. They actually give you a plus 10 MS, which is very helpful for Galio. The next row here, this is where things get interesting. So ages ago, when I actually hadn't looked at any rune pages for Galio, when I thought this champion was actually just quite strong, I was experimenting with DMAT. My theory with Dematerializer is that any champion that struggles to kill cannons can use this rune very well. And when I first played Galio, my initial assumption was Galio sucks at killing cannons. I would love to take this rune. This will allow me to play for tempo bases better, allow me to push and roam better, get the skirmishes easier, just create more opportunities, because I don't want to stick in lane sitting there trying to kill this cannon for like a minute. It just takes so long. So I really, any champion that can't kill cannons is always really good with Dematerializer. Now, the thing is here, if you are in a heavy trading matchup, you can go Biscuits, maybe versus a Zoe or a Syndra or whatever. You can go Biscuits for the extra sustain in lane. But I'm personally a massive fan of Dematerializer on the cannons to, again, create those tempo-based opportunities to push and roam, that sort of thing, which really fits with Galio's identity. Because you want to find opportunities to make plays, to push the pace of the game, to get things happening, to create chaos, blow summoners, etc. So you can actually get on targets, that sort of thing. Now, the next row here, again, very interesting. In the last setup, this is where things get a little bit complicated. And you really need to understand your matchups. If you are in a heavy trading matchup where you feel like you want to play the lane relatively quickly, you can go Time Warp Tonic with Corrupting Pot, which is very, very helpful for Galio, because before, you didn't really have that luxury. You could basically only go Deering, because I hate going Corrupting Pot without Time Warp Tonic. But now, if you are in a heavy trading matchup, you can go Time Warp Tonic to stay relatively healthy. And I actually personally love Time Warp Tonic with Galio, because you want to play the game relatively fast pace, tempo reset for an early Dark Seal, that sort of thing. But conversely, if you're in an easier matchup, you don't need to play the lane relatively quickly, maybe versus something like an Orianna or something, you can just go Cosmic Insight, which is really, really good for Galio, because we know how important flash timers are, getting your flash back off cooldown, and summoners in general, and it even gives you active item CDR for the Zhonya's and the Proto Belt, which is really nice as well. And overall, so basically, if you're versing a slower lane, go Cosmic. If you want to play it faster, go Time Warp Tonic. Again, this really is preference. It depends on the type of player you are, how you interpret Galio's identity, that sort of thing. I am just a massive advocate for Time Warp Tonic. Now, secondary, basically the same thing. Nimbus Cloak Transcendence or Nimbus Cloak Absolute Focus. Again, this is a preference thing. The main reason the Aftershock setup really took Absolute Focus is because Aftershock, the whole Aftershock setup was all about the one initial burst. You're going to be full HP, go in, proc your Aftershock, get a nice bit of burst with your team. You didn't really want to be sticking around for a second and third combo, because that wasn't the identity of Galio with that specific iteration. But now that you've got a scaling rune, you scale much better, because Aftershock doesn't scale well at all on Galio comparatively to Unsealed Spellbook. You actually scale quite well. So Transcendence fits more with the identity of Unsealed Spellbook, more CDR. You can actually go for multiple combos within a fight, because what happens, let's say you have Ghost, but your flash is actually already up as well. You can Ghost. When your Ghost wears off, your flash is going to come back up with that after those few seconds, and then sometimes you can actually use two differing summoners in a fight, which again, in combination with the extra CDR you're going to get, in combination with the Unsealed Spellbook, Nimbus Cloak, whatever, you can get multiple combos off in a fight. So this is another reason why you just scale incredibly well. And we'll talk about why this is such a good scaling rune later on. I do a whole separate slide on Unsealed Spellbook. Now, before we move on, we really need to understand what the trade-offs are. The reason I put such a massive emphasis on understanding runes is because you got to understand the context behind it. You got to understand what we're trading off and why. What are some of the strengths and weaknesses? Now, the great thing about the Resolve Tree for Galio was that Second Wind and Bone Plating were massive, because you're a melee champion, you take a lot of poke damage. It really allowed you to be very durable in combination with your W Deering start. It basically compensated for your ability not to be able to take Time Warp Tonic, right? So with these, you don't really need to take Time Warp Tonic, because you were so durable anyway. You got that sustain from Second Wind, or, soaked up that damage with Bone Plating. Now we don't have that luxury, so we're going to be way less durable in laning phase, but again, can be compensated with Time Warp Tonic. We also miss out on Demolish, which is very good on roam-centric champions, because if you think about a champion like Twisted Fate, You ult to a side lane, same as Galio, ult to a side lane. You get the kill, proc your demolish, push the pace of the game, that sort of thing. And we also, which is a massive one, we lose unflinching, which is big for tenacity because Galio's, tenacity is such an important part of Galio's kit. Such a nice stat for Galio. So as long as you're understanding the trade-offs here, you are less durable, but you get more utility. It's just something to think about. So moving on to the summoners, guys, it's very, very simple for Galio. You're either going teleport or heal. And to keep it super simple, if you're maybe duo with someone or you're in a very aggressive 2v2 mid jungle, so maybe you see like Rek'Sai, Lee Sin, Jarvan Elise, a lot of the time I really like to go heal in these fast-paced 2v2s. But if you're in more of a, I guess, you know you're not going to be playing for the 2v2s, you're more going to be playing for side lane plays, your jungle's more farming oriented, not going to be coming mid lane, because again, Galio can't solo kill people anyway, he's a facilitator in that sense. You just take TP, which is just way better to have, because you can hold your TP to side lane players, we'll talk about all that later within the game, but TP is just way better if you can take it. A lot of people do really like, in high elo, they do really like heal because of the fast-paced nature of the game, because there's so many skirmishes, it's go, 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 in combination with Nimbus Cloak, because heal is one of the best 2v2 summoners in the entire game. Because the difference between heal and ignite is that ignite's on one person, yes, it's great for bursting, but heal is so good for extended skirmishes and scrappy 2v2s because of the movement speed for both of you and the heal. So it's something to think about. Now, I've got a little note here. I just wanted to talk about, some of the strong... This is actually... We'll get into this way later on, but when you're swapping out, given the Ghost buffs, I think Ghost is so incredibly strong on Galio. In combination with Nimbus Cloak, the buffs to Ghost, that sort of thing, it is really, really good. And it is a spell that I would highly recommend swapping to. I pretty much swap to it all the time. Especially if I start TP, I'm either going to be swapping to heal or swapping to Ghost. They're my two absolute favorites. Otherwise, if I'm playing fights very, very fast, I'll play for Ignite. Again, I'm going to go into this more about later, but I just wanted to get the creative juices flowing. Now what we're going to do is talk about the trade-offs between Aftershock and Spellbook. What are some of the strengths? What are some of the weaknesses? And this is where you really need to understand. You need to understand the theory here, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to go into the game, you're not going to adapt your gameplay, and you're going to find yourself getting into very sticky situations. Now, Aftershock on the left-hand side. Let's talk about Aftershock first. Aftershock, you're more durable within the laning phase. We spoke about reason why, obviously because of Aftershock itself, but more importantly, bone plating and second wind. You're better at initiating fights due to Aftershock durability and the tenacity as well on top of that. Now, with Aftershock, you can just go in, blow your load, get the W down, get the taunt down, proc your Aftershock, especially in the early portion of the game. You're so tanky, hard to kill, so you're really good at initiating fights because you're so durable. On the flip side, again, you have less utility. You're probably only going to get one combo off in a fight. Conversely, Spellbook, you're going to get multiple combos off in a fight, potentially. So you're just better at initiating fights. Something to think about, if you're playing competitive, if you're playing with friends. Do you need an initiator? Do you need that front line? Aftershock Galio probably is the way to go. But it doesn't scale as well as Spellbook. I spoke about why, but we'll get into this on the next slide as well. But Spellbook scales incredibly well, and the main reason with Aftershock not scaling is because it actually scales with armor and MR, and a lot of the time you're building a lot of ability power on Galio. Otherwise, you have no threat. And if you have no threat on Galio, in my opinion, you're just useless anyway. Yes, you can go, if maybe you get really behind in the early game and you have like side lanes that are fed, you can go something like Thornmail into like adaptive helmet, but I very rarely do that in solo queue because I can't really trust teammates, and I just don't think it's a reliable way of playing Galio. But it is easier to execute, so if you guys are lower elo, maybe you're like silver, bronze, that sort of thing, Aftershock is very easy to execute. You don't need to think about swapping summoners, that sort of thing. Super simple, very clear identity. The next, it's better against burst-oriented matchups like Fizz and Zed. So I still take Aftershock against matchups like Fizz and Zed that are very burst-oriented. Again, versus matchups that have sustained damage, Aftershock doesn't do too much. Let's just say you go on to a Victor. Yes, you may soak up the initial burst, but Victor can always chase you down on the back end with Q, auto attacks, or even an ultimate, in which Aftershock doesn't really come in handy, and especially after your bone plating's worn off. So, when you are versing champions like Fizz and Zed, between the bone plating and the Aftershock, you're basically never going to die. And that's what the setup I like to take for them, those sorts of matchups. You have less opportunities to make plays, and you're very one-dimensional due to lack of summoners. Again, because Galio is so centered around summoner spells, and you have less access to summoner spells, there's just straight up going to be less opportunity to make plays. You'll find yourself with Spellbook having more opportunities, because you're going to have things like Ghost, you're going to have Heal, you're going to have, you know, Barrier, Ignite. You have so many more opportunities to make plays because you're just going to feel more confident with having more access to Nimbus Cloak. And again, very one-dimensional. You're more of an initiator. Go for that initial burst. Play around that flash and TP, that sort of thing. It's harder to push a move due to inability to kill cannons. And I spoke about this before, but because you're not able to take Dematerializer with this specific rune setup, sometimes it's actually really hard to get tempo resets, and it can be quite hard to, you know, get to fights because without actually reliably getting the wave out, which is a big reason why a lot of Galios get behind in farm, is because they just compensate. They haven't got the wave out fully, but they see a fight break out, they just press R and like, oh, well, look at my wave, it's screwed, but I have to go to the fight. That's the great thing about DMAT. If you see a fight break out, you quickly DMAT, cue the wave, then go. You know, that sort of thing. It's just a little bit nicer there. So onto Spellbook. It's easier to tempo reset due to Time Warp Tonic and DMAT. Time Warp Tonic is very good for tempo resets because you get that extra burst of resources, which gives you a bit of extra strength and extra threat, which means you can push them, maybe tank a little bit more damage off that specific wave, back off, maybe Q through it, then E back out, auto attack it, whatever, and get that tempo reset. So Time Warp Tonic is really good with Corrupting Pot for tempo resets. Obviously, and DMAT as well. More opportunity creation due to increased spell usage and Nimbus Cloak usage. Like I said before, again, very self-explanatory. You just have more opportunities. Galio is so centered around summoner spells for that movement speed, for that gap closer, more opportunities to do things. Very flexible with first item buys due to rune choices. Like I said, you can go D-Ring or you can go Corrupting Pot depending on the matchup. So you're not always tunneled into taking DMAT. You can play a little bit more fast paced because you have that option to go Time Warp Tonic and Corrupting Pot. Less durability and harder to engage fights. Again, because you're less tanky without the bone plating, without the Aftershock, that sort of thing, you're less durable, so it's harder for you to engage fights. You know, you still can engage fights, but you got to be a little bit more careful. You're not as tanky. It is something to consider if you were a big Aftershock user for Galio. So it will take a little bit of time to adjust, as long as you're at least processing it. Okay, I am a little bit less durable here. I need to take that into account when going into fights. Easier to reposition, to get repositioned and get multiple combos off during a fight. So like I said before as well, because you potentially are going to have multiple summoners within a fight or get access to things like Ghost, Heal, those sorts of things, and reliably proc your Nimbus Cloak, use that extra movement speed, you're going to be able to reposition after a fight, get in, get out, get multiple combos off potentially. You have to be a little bit more calculated. You're not just one big rock with Aftershock. But you know, it is something to think about, and you will find this when playing Galio yourself. And the last one here, it has a higher skill cap and scales much better. If you're more of a beginner player and you want a very simple identity champion, then Aftershock Galio is for you. But if you want a little bit more skill expression, maybe you're a bit of a higher elo player, you know, maybe Spellbook is something you want to experiment with, and there's a lot of skill cap there. Any champion that takes Unsealed Spellbook has a high skill cap, purely because of, you know, you got to be creative. You got to think, oh, what summoner should I take and why? What's the next fight going to look like? Why should I take Exhaust? Should I take Exhaust for Peel here, or should I take Ghost? And we'll talk about again this later. Now, this is the reason why Unsealed Spellbook scales so incredibly well, guys. People don't even know this. Each summoner swap decreases the swap cooldown by 20 seconds. So at the start, the first swap you get it at 240 seconds, and then across 6 swaps, it reduces to 120 seconds. So every 2 minutes, you can swap a summoner spell once you use all 6. That's why you got to use them as fast as you can and get that cooldown as fast as possible. And this is the main reason Spellbook Galio scales so incredibly well, because you get it down to 120 seconds after 6 swaps. People don't even know. I was surprised people didn't really know that. So a few tips here, guys. Try to avoid swapping a summoner that is either not on cooldown or doesn't have left long on the cooldown. Because what is one of the biggest strengths, guys, of Unsealed Spellbook is that you have access to summoner spells all the time. You just use your TP, you come back, you can swap it to heal because your TP is on cooldown. So you have access to a summoner spell that you wouldn't have otherwise had. If you're swapping a summoner spell that's already off cooldown, or it's already available, or it's got a very low cooldown left on it, there's probably going to be a lot of overlap where you've still got a summoner here that you haven't used and the other one's available as well. And you want to minimize that as much as possible. Very, very important you think about that. Maximize your availability to flash as much as you can. Always swap out the second summoner instead of flash if you can. I say another big mistake I see with Galio players is that maybe they have a choice between swapping out flash or TP, and they're both, maybe TP's actually got a bit of a longer cooldown, or sorry, flash has got a bit of a longer cooldown than the other one, so they just swap out the other one. But you're not realizing, I want to have access to my flash as soon as it comes up. Flash is the most important summoner for Galio. It's really important to understand that. So try and maximize the availability to flash as much as you can by swapping out the other spell, not swapping out flash. Unless obviously flash is got a really long cooldown and you just use it, you can swap it out. But majority of the time, sometimes you actually have a choice. Think in advance about what you need. So tie to your role in that. This is where things get a little bit complicated, and this is where the skill expression really comes into play. So you got to think about what does your composition need given the state of the game. So what is your role in that composition? Okay, are you the peel defensive setup champion, or are you the aggressive burst dive the backline? This is where in your reviews, you really need to take the time. We will go over this within the VOD specifically. But say, for example, you've got like a Jarvan and a Rek'Sai a Jarvan or a Rek'Sai on your team, or maybe with a Camille. Maybe you're like, okay, if I go with the backline, can we just one-shot the backline with them? Or do they ever need me? Do they need me at all? That sort of thing. Then you think, okay, conversely, if I played this fight defensively and sat on my AD carry with my ultimate, with my W, would this allow us to win the fight? You got to think about who's strong, who's spiking. If you do dive the backline, what is your ability to even zone them / kill them, that sort of thing. This will come with experience, and it really comes down to your quality of your reviews. If you're not really putting the time into your reviews, you're going to find it hard to improve on this specific thing. The other point here was also try to have one mobility and one offensive spell. So I always like to have one spell where I can use it for mobility and gap closer, and one for offensive purposes or defensive. So for example, I like having Ghost with Ignite or Heal with Exhaust. I want one summoner that's going to allow that I can actually use without having to click on anyone to proc Nimbus Cloak. Because if you have Exhaust Ignite, you need to be in range to someone to click it onto in order to actually proc the Nimbus Cloak. Whereas if you have Heal and Ghost, even if you don't necessarily need to use Heal, you can always use Heal for the MS and the Nimbus Cloak, right? But if you have Exhaust and Ignite, you can't do that. You don't have that luxury, so you're going to have no engage. So it's very important to at least have one activatable summoner that will give you mobility to get into the fight. And the last point here is get creative and limit test. Galio, again, because it has such a high skill cap, you need to push your limits. You need to understand, okay, especially with summoners like Ghost and Heal, go in with the movement speed, extra with the Nimbus Cloak, with the extra Ghost buff, whatever, the Heal movement speed with Nimbus Cloak. Push your limits. Maybe you can get to fights that you would have otherwise never went to. Maybe you can make plays or dives that you never would have been able to with Barrier or Heal. Maybe you can actually, instead of going straight to lane with Ghost, you can actually go somewhere else to a play and get to that play, people would never have expected it, that sort of thing. So really push your limits, test out what is possible with these differing summoners, and if you don't, you're just going to be scraping the surface with Galio. So lastly here, guys, I just want to quickly talk about my take on Spellbook Galio identity. What I did was I just basically copy and pasted the first few points here, and then I go into the things that are different. So let's quickly talk about the things that I said this in my previous video. I said that your whole identity revolves around threat. You're the ultimate 2v2 mid-jungle skirmish champion. You're the river control king due to Galio's level of threat. You have reliable gank setup. You can create space for your teammates to get advantages, and your mentality should not be focused on the 1v1. Now, my little changes, little additions here, is that you need to be clear on your identity and role in team fights. This is one of the hardest bits about Galio. And like I said before, if you're not actively thinking about what your role, what your identity is within that comp, you're going to find yourself, maybe you're tunneling in on always peel when you should be diving, or maybe you're tunneling on diving when you should be peeling. This will come with experience, but as long as you're engaging in that level of thought in your review, going to a specific team fight and skirmish, saying to yourself, oh, maybe I actually should have just sat on my 80 carry here. Would we have won the fight if I just peeled my Vayne instead of just diving onto the enemy Ezreal? That sort of thing. So you got to be very clear on what you're how you're trying to play fights and why that is the case. So the last point here, guys, is that you actually have a lot more carry threat with this setup. With the previous setup with Aftershock Galio, if the game was in an even state, it kind of just felt like you were a facilitator. But the thing with this specific setup with Galio is that you have a lot more opportunities to make plays. You have access to offensive summoners like Ignite and Exhaust, that sort of thing. So I don't want you to tunnel in on just being that pure bot, even if you're in an even state. Look for creative plays, and again, ties back to that point before, which is push your limits. If you're just going into a game with the mindset whereas I'm just a peel bot, I got to play for my team, I can't dive, I can't make plays, that sort of thing, you're just going to be scraping the surface of what's possible with this champion. Get really creative with the usage of your summoner spells, and get out of the realm. Because when I have reviewed a lot of Galio players, they have this thing and they ask me questions like, should I just build full tank here? Can't I just build full tank? But I feel like that's telling of the mindset. You shouldn't just be in that mindset where I'm building full tank. I still feel like Galio can carry a lot of games. Yes, you're not a 1v9 champion. There are going to be some games that are really hard. But if you do get a few kills in the early game, you can completely run over a game, especially with the more summoner spell accessibility, as long as you're actually building AP. You're not just building first after Protobelt, building into like a Gargoyles or Thorn Mail into Adaptive Helmet, that sort of thing. So now what we're going to do now, guys, is dive into a replay that I think is very realistic. It's not one of those clean cut dive side lanes never die sort of games. It's where I make mistakes, it's a bit sloppy, people are dying, getting caught everywhere. It's a little bit of a chaotic game, which I think is something that you guys will see when you play Galio yourself, because Galio is a champion that thrives in chaos. So we're going to be talking about how to properly use Spellbook, how to adapt it, how to identify the way you want to play team fights, how to identify threats, that sort of thing. It's going to be really interesting, so stay tuned, guys. Now for today's VOD here, guys, this is me playing Galio into Karma, which is a relatively easy matchup. I mean, like, I can't really kill her, but she can't really kill me. I've also got a Graves jungle, and I'm versing a Jarvan jungle. Now, when heading into any Galio game, I really like to direct my attention onto a few things. Firstly, what is my jungle champion? How much threat do they have? Is there a lot of gank setup and can follow up on my gank setup? What will their path look like? When do they spike? That sort of thing. I know that Graves is a champion that really likes to full clear, doesn't want to go for necessarily for level 3 ganks, although he can, but it's very different to like a Rek'Sai or a Jarvan or an Elise. Conversely, I always have to assess what the enemy jungler wants to do, because Galio is actually a very vulnerable champion to ganks. You're a melee champion that is, has to get up in the action. So versing champions like Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Elise, you're very vulnerable. So I got to be quite careful in the early game as well. The next thing I like to think about is roughly what sort of composition do we have? I don't think this is going to be a game where I'm going to be diving the backline. It looks like we have a very front to back team composition where I'm going to be facilitating my Graves and my Darius and my Ezreal. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm the only form of AP on the top side of the map, which is really, really good. And conversely, I think it's going to be quite hard for me to dive the backline when I'm versing a Karma as well. So I think this is a game already I'm starting to think, okay, most likely I'm just going to be facilitating this Graves, peeling the Graves, playing front to back team fights. So the reason this was such a good VOD in my opinion is because it was very representative of the average solo queue game. It was chaotic from level 1, people getting caught, there wasn't really an obvious winning side. I had to be very careful about the way I played team fights, to be creative with the way I used my Unsealed Spellbook, that sort of thing. So even from level 1 here, guys, just fast forwarding a little bit, we invade, everyone's blowing flashes, Graves ends up getting a kill. I end up having to burn Flash here to go for a kill on Akali. We end up killing Akali, but it comes at a big cost. I actually blow my Flash, and I use 2 corrupting pots, and I don't have time to go back to base and come back to lane without missing CS, and I don't really want to use my TP this early in the game, because that's my playmaking ability, and already I don't have Flash. I didn't want to do that. Graves ends up getting the red, but ends up getting chased down by Jarvan and dying. So already I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a chaotic game. There's a lot of trading kills, a lot of trading flashes. I end up missing 1 CS here, so I know I'm actually relatively okay because I did get the assist XP. But I knew this was going to be a very chaotic game. Now, when I'm in this situation, all I'm thinking about is I need to play around my jungler. At the end of the day, Galio is a facilitator. Whether it's through setting up ganks or getting to skirmishes and pushing and moving, whatever, I need to be with my team. Now, the only downside here, guys, is that because I don't have flash, I need to be a lot more careful. And more importantly, I only have one corrupting pot, so I have very little sustain. Now, before we get into the laning phase, we need to talk about, like, you know how we like to talk about mini games or the amount of gold that is optimal to base on. I mean, ideally, yes, 1050 gold is great because Revolver Spike is massive for Galio's burst, but one of the biggest strengths of Unsealed Spellbook, and especially by going Time Warp Tonic and Corrupting Pot, going back for an early Darkseal is completely fine. And if the pace of the game is really fast, you can actually go Doran's and Darkseal. Either are fine. I personally only go Doran's when I know it's a very fast-paced game, but Darkseal alone is very, very fine as well. And actually in this game, because I knew that I used 2 Corrupting Pots very early, I knew it was going to be a fast-paced game, I actually go back for an early Darkseal base. So that's a few things that I'm thinking about right now. So all I'm thinking is, okay, I don't really have a ward. I've used my ward level 1 just to spot out the potential vertical clear. But I need to play around my graves. I can't kill Karma 1v1. There's no point in me heavy trading because I'll probably get out-sustained. All that's going to do is create more kill threat on me for Jarvan as well. That's not really what I want to do. So, generally in the early laning phase, I like to take it slow. I do cover a lot of the lane specifics in my previous Galio guide. If you are interested in learning more about Galio, please refer to my previous Galio guide that I did around a month ago. I'll put it in the description below. So I get the push here, and this is where I go for an early base for a Darkseal, knowing that I have TP anyway, just in case something breaks out. So I knew here, most likely, Jarvan wasn't going to contest Graves in the river, knowing that our bot had push, I had push mid, and worst case scenario, I can TP back here if need be. Now, notice my camera movement. Now, this is very important on Galio. Your camera movement, and specifically whether it's F keys or just panning onto the minimap, ideally your F keys, for me, it's mouse button, although that is still something I'm trying to make a habit of. It's very important because your early TPs to early skirmishes is your early kill threat is insane. If you go to any VOD on YouTube, you type in like high elo Korean Galio, I would say 80% of games, they are going for an early level 3, level 4, level 5 TP onto a side lane to kill someone, or dive someone, or turn around a skirmish. It's one of the biggest strengths of Galio, like we said, in combination with Nimbus Cloak, Unsealed Spellbook, that sort of thing. It's just what you want to be doing. So, I'm painting my camera here already, waiting for them to commit. He ends up dying, this Yuumi ends up dying, but I know they're not really committing here, so I'm like, alright, I don't really need to. So I keep painting my camera there, there's nothing else to TP to mid anyway. As soon as Jarvan goes, then I TP. Look at that. You TP after they've committed. You don't TP before they're committed, otherwise they're just going to back off. So what do I see here? I see that, okay, Ezreal's quite low. I see that there's a big wave though. I'm pretty sure Leona has no flash, but and Jarvan's level 2, and I know that most likely Ezreal can probably survive that burst, so I'm just waiting for the initial EQ, then I go in. So, Ezreal ends up dying, I go in, I'm kind of committed, I try to get the kill and get out here, but Leona ends up going on me as well. I mean, it's not terrible, I mean, it's the choice I made in the moment, but as long as the thought process is there, is that I want to influence sides, I want chaos, I'm happy to trade kills, that sort of thing. Now, Ezreal TP's back. Karma ends up TPing bot. Yes, this TP was actually quite sketchy in a way. My intention wasn't to trade kills here. I just thought that Jarvan was overextended. I probably could have TP'd to a deeper minion here, to be honest. And this VOD review, guys, is actually going to be a bit of both. It's going to be me reviewing this game as if I'm reviewing it, talking about not only the things I do well, but the things I do poorly, what I put an emphasis on, and why that is the case. Now, in these situations, all of these skirmishes, you must review. Galio is a skirmish-oriented champion. If your skirmishing is poor and your fight assessment is poor, you're not going to have success with this champion. So the little details matter. I probably should have TP'd to a deeper minion. I maybe should have waited for Galio to commit a little bit later. I don't know. But here I go for that kill. Could I have... Maybe I actually could have got this play off. If I W and then auto, then Q... I still think I die. Now, the reason this is a really bad TP if I die is because Karma was still in mid lane pushing that out. So I'm actually going to lose a lot of farm here. A lot of farm. So Karma pushes out mid. Ezreal TP's bots. And I was like, see that? I was like, pinging, Karma was walking down. I'm not doing anything. Like, as I'm coming out of base, I'm already thinking what's going to happen here. I was pinging now, Karma walking down the river, and then I see Karma TP. So Karma ends up TPing. So this actually gets me back in the game a little bit here. Yes, Karma soaks up a lot of this farm under tower, but I know that I have a bit of free reign on the wave for a little bit. Just look how chaotic this game is. And this is, again, very representative of a classic Galio game. Just because of your kit, generally just the situations you'll find yourself in. And again, that's the strength of DMAT, guys. Look at this. DMAT, you want to get to a skirmish, something breaks out, DMAT the cannon, get to the fight. If I didn't have Dematerializer here, I wouldn't have been able to reach this specific situation at all. So Graves, instead of running, kind of tries to go for a kill, ends up getting a kill on Jarvan, and I can't reach it in time, so he just ends up dying as well. So it's already 9 kills by 4 minutes 30. I get a nice little deep ward out. This is a ward I don't really talk about very often. If you ward outside this entrance here, it gives your team so much warning about where the jungler is. Because if you see them enter into this bot side that early on, you just give them so much warning. Because I know already this game is going to be played towards bot side. My bot side was taking good trades. I've already gone bot and helped them once. Most likely, the way I'm thinking right now is I want to continue to play bot side. That's my thought process right now. I end up using a pink as well. I don't agree with this pink. I think this pink's actually really low value. Because I want to play bot side, I actually should have held on to that pink, got this next wave, then lent onto bot side, put a pink in the bot dot bush. I think that's a pretty low value pink, to be honest, because I've already got that ward there anyway. Kind of getting a bit carried away. So, again, my intention, play with my team. I don't want to make a play on Karma this game. I don't think that's the win condition. I think this win condition is on my bot lane. You'll find as Galio, generally there's always just this, like, you have to identify the win con. You got to identify your winning side. And if it's not winning, surely you're going to have an even side. Because, okay, let's just say, my bot lane, okay, they're 0-0-1-0-1, but they're up a lot in XP. They're not necessarily winning by score standards, but in terms of XP and CS, they're actually winning. Okay, let's just say they had died and they actually didn't have TP and didn't come back and none of that happened. But because I traded kills, they're not necessarily losing. They might be even. So your job as a mid laner is to influence the even side to make them winning a lot of the time. That's your job as a mid laner, especially as Galio. So, keeping the mid pushed in, keeping priority, because I know Graves is a champion. Because, again, if I had a Jarvan or a Rek'Sai or something, I would probably bounce that wave and let it come out to me, pink one side maybe, or tell them where it isn't warded, knowing that, you know, I know Karma hasn't warded yet, and probably set up a gank. But, it's Graves. I just don't think playing towards mid here is the play, given that it's a Karma, she's really hard to kill, she's got a Chalice, she's going to see us from a range, I don't have flash, I can't actually get on top of her. Graves just needs to farm. He's really far behind in tempo as well. It's that sort of thing. Oh, he's actually not that far behind in tempo because Jarvan's actually behind in tempo as well, but you get what I mean. Because again, your job as Galio is to identify your role and your identity within this game. I know it's not going to be playing towards mid at all. Graves can't gank mid in this specific matchup. And Karma actually has double buffs as well, which is quite annoying. So I actually ping here that Jarvan's on top side. I actually ping the Krugs here. Because I have this warded, and I'm assuming, you know, Jarvan's, you know, went from here to here and done these camps. I'm assuming that Jarvan's back top side. So I actually ping that he's on Krugs. I think he's on Krugs or Raptors here. That's what I thought anyway. Given all the vision bot side and the level 1 pathing. So I demat the cannon here to maintain priority just in case something happens. Nothing too special going on here. I don't really need to recall, so I don't recall. I kind of stay on the map. Trying to lean, but there's nowhere for me to lean. I probably should have leaned bot side, but the only problem with leaning bot side is that I don't have vision of the river. I don't even have wards to place myself, and my Graves is just farming. My Graves is just doing a full clear, so I have to play patient. You always need to be aware of your teammates' location, especially your jungler. Whatever your jungler is doing, you need to complement them. If I'm to walk into river, walk into the jungle, and get caught by the enemy Jarvan, what is my Graves going to do? He was on wolves. Now, first swap of the game, 6 minutes, guys. What do we swap to? Now, what do we see here? We see Flash is on a 52-second cooldown, so I never want to swap that because it's coming up so soon. TP, conversely, again, it's got a long cooldown, and it's the better someone to swap out, so I end up swapping to heal. Okay, so I knew this was a fast-paced game, and I knew it wasn't going to be playing around burst. It was more going to be like scrappy skirmishes. Ghost or heal both work here. I chose heal because it's just better for skirmishing. I think both could have worked. It's just a little preference thing. Because again, heal is just so flexible. It's such a it can get you to fights. It can be really good within fights itself. It's just a super flexible summoner spell. Alright, so now I'm just chilling. My bot lane's recalled. My Graves is on an entire full clear. I'm just waiting. Not really much I can do at the moment. I ping missing on the dragon because I think they're on dragon here. Because I saw the bot lane actually walk up. So right now, in between waves, I'm not just doing nothing. I'm panning my camera. I'm panning my eyes onto the minimap, knowing that my bot lane just recalled. So I know the enemy bot lane have moved. Whenever you're in between waves like this, you don't just autopilot. I'm looking, where's my team? If I don't know where the enemy is, you have a pretty good idea about where they could be, given that where your team is. If my team's recalled coming out of base, most likely they're either recalled or again having push and move potential or have a bit of tempo on my enemy or whatever it is. So I see the Leona and the MF walk into river. I'm just respecting here, waiting for my bot lane. I don't want a fight to happen right now. That would be worst case scenario for my bot lane. You notice how much I'm thinking about my team. I'm Galio. I mean, again, if I make my team's life harder, like that's the worst case scenario because I need to have someone on my team quite fed. So, okay, another thing here. What I was thinking is I need to get to 6, and because I see my Graves ping assist me in the river, so I was actually all right. Let me get 6 here quickly. Now I've got 6. I try to get a range for my ultimate. So I'm just hovering here. Graves is looking for a play. I think this is actually quite bad. I really don't want to go to this because I actually missed a bit of farm here. End up clearing some vision. But again, I'm just hovering just so I'm in range with my R. So, DMAT mid. Again, beautiful. I was actually planning to reset here or just hover, and then top ends up getting dove, which is not good. So, there's such a big wave here, and I actually saw that Darius didn't have TP because he actually had Ghost, so I end up going top here to catch some of this farm. I don't usually do this, but in this specific circumstance, I don't think we had a champion that could dive bot. I don't think we could reliably build waves against an MF, and Graves was probably going to be low after Dragon, and Graves isn't the best diving champion. So, and I had a lot of gold as well, so I didn't really want to make a play. In another reality, in an alternate universe where maybe this was like a Rek'Sai or whatever, or maybe we're both level 6 or whatever, and he's a bit healthier, and they've already got a wave building, then potentially I'd go bot here, because, you know, their enemy jungle showed topside here, so I can make a play on the other side, knowing it's like an isolated 2v2, and that Karma doesn't have TP. But, I was like, screw it. I don't want to make a play bot side right now. I've got so much gold. I'm just going to catch this farm. Tell Darius to go mid. Darius goes mid. So nothing will be lost here. It's just a little bit more efficient all over in terms of just resources. So Graves is able to do a bit of a vertical clear there, knowing that Jarvan showed topside. I try and get the wave out. Miss a bunch of CS here, unfortunately. Thinking that my E did more damage. And I get a quick recall to spend some of my gold. So, get my revolver. Beautiful. Get another pink ward. Coming back out into mid. What am I doing? I'm pressing tab. Assessing itemization. Where's everyone on the map? What's going on here? I keep pressing tab to assess what's going on. I said, and I'm even typing in chat, just play for Rift, please, because I don't want them to do this at all. This is a very low value play. It's very likely that Jarvan's coming straight back onto bot or going straight onto Rift as soon as Graves actually shows here. It's actually a really low value play from Graves to do this. And I'm not in position. I got to catch the wave. Really bad play. They can't die. They're playing Graves, Ezreal, Yuumi. So, bad play. And they end up getting engaged on. I'm trying to hover here. Ideally, I don't want to do this because I haven't got the wave out. I move my pink. I move my. Oh, I thought I actually moved my pink here. I should have actually moved my pink here. Actually, no, I shouldn't have. I should have actually kept my pick for topside. So I end up using one ward there. And then I get this, trying to get this wave in. And they're wasting so much time bot here. I was thinking to myself, like, please play Rift. That's why I even typed in chat before. Please play for Rift. I'm almost hovering again because my goal is always hover to my jungle. I need to always hover to my jungle. My initial thought process here is, look at this. My initial thought process here is that I think top's going to get dived again. So I end up panning my camera top to assess the situation, knowing that Akali's got a wave built in. I was like, oh, screw it. I need to play to my strong side. So I do a bit of hesitation. I don't like this. Usually I'm very big on being decisive. Like, are you 100% playing for bot side or 100% playing for top side? But because in my mind, I was so sold that this was never going to work, that play was never going to work. Like, I was just looking at level 5 Yumi with no mana, level 5 Graves with not much and a lot of gold. I had no idea if Jarvan most likely was there as well. I just thought this was a really bad play and I didn't want to make it. And I even typed and they just didn't listen and they still went for this play. So Graves is still dicking around bot doing nothing. And obviously Jarvan's here and then they get caught and then die. And I wasn't in range for ult. And I think they get out. Okay. Bit annoying. So ideally we should be playing for Rift here. And this is why it's a good VOD, guys. I think this was a really good VOD to show. So, taking a bit of a beating here from Karma, but it's not the end of the world because I have Corrupting Pot, so I can sustain quite well. Not too bad. Again, got to wait for my team. Really not much I can do. And I even ping Rift Herald again here. I ping Rift Herald. And notice how I'm not trying to heavy trade or contest right now. It's very bad for me to, if I can actually potentially walk up and throw Qs and heavy trade onto this Karma. But again, I identified my role in this game. We're not going to be able to kill this Karma. She has 3 biscuits and Athenes, and we're just not. My Graves needs to full clear. He's coming back on the map. He's going to do a bot to top path. It's very bad if I heavy trade here because most likely Leona can come mid. Akali's missing, but I'm just thinking about the junglers. I'm thinking Graves, Jarvan has top river control. I need to play around my Graves. I don't want to force anything right now. That's actually very detrimental for my Graves right now. And it's easy to think about in between waves because there's nothing else for me to think about, you know? Okay. And the other thing as well, the good thing about waiting patient like this is you need to be conscious about your passive. When you take damage and that passive's up, you should be conscious about before you can re-enter into the wave because you want to maximize the amount of time that your passive's actually up. So I try to stay out of combat a little bit. Then when my passive's up, then I go back in. Anyway, I'll hover in between here. I see top to heavy trading. This is where, again, where side lane awareness comes into play, guys. I'm pinging my ult. I'm pinging that I'm not in range yet. They trade flash for flash, and then Darius ends up dying here. I see a pick in river, end up going onto this Karma. I thought I needed to flash to kill him. I thought he had pots ticking here. I thought he could like pop like a biscuit or whatever and maybe like survive or whatever, but he ends up dying and wasting my flash. I stopped the recall, unfortunate. Now, we're playing for Rift. Finally, we're playing for Rift. So I'm trying to get the top shoved in. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. And this is how you don't get far behind in farm. You always want to push, then move. You don't want to always ditch waves. If you just ditch waves and don't push and move before you go to the fight, you're going to get very far behind. Akali TP's in. I pan my camera here, say on my way. Then I see Jarvan. So I know there's going to be a skirmish. Look at that. Look at that. So I know there's going to be a skirmish right now. I know my Unsealed Spellbook's up. So look what I do. Before I go to this fight, I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a skirmish. I want something that will work pretty well in this skirmish. So I end up swapping to Ghost because Ghost and Heal are my favorite ones. Could equally have gone Ignite or Exhaust, but I just felt like Ghost is more flexible if I'm not sure what's going to happen. I dodged the EQ here. Charge my W for Peel. Get a knock up. Trying to burst. Notice how I don't use my R yet. Then I use my R. So look at this. So I don't R as soon as Jarvan EQ's in at first. I do that to combo just to buy time for Grace to actually get the Rift Herald. Then I R here. Buy time. Use my heal there. What do I use? Sorry, I use heal actually. I use heal as well here. Use heal. Use my R. Then to chase, I use my Ghost here. Start to proc it. Akali goes in. We end up getting another kill here on the Akali. Now, so it's very important that, again, these sorts of skirmishes, you guys need to spend a disproportionate amount of time reviewing your skirmishes. Yes, the laning phase is important, very important on Galio, but the laning phase should be relatively simple because, you know, the laning phase, I don't think it's a hard laning. Any lanes are relatively that hard on Galio, but your skirmishing is what's going to be the difference between being successful on Galio or not. And look at that. Even after this fight, look what I'm doing. I instantly pan my camera bot. And I have TP, and I was thinking, oh, should I TP to the tower? I was looking at the farm, I was looking at how much HP, and I knew that's a bad play because they're both dead. So you got to be on the ball. You got to be switched on. You always got to be thinking about what are you getting done? What can you get done? So I go base quickly for my proto belt here, and I'm thinking I have TP. I can actually TP bot. So I didn't even know. So I'm pinging assist me onto the Yuumi. I actually didn't even know. I found out this game that Yuumi can't TP with you. So I thought Yuumi, if Yuumi went on me and I TP'd, we can actually kill them. So I'm pinging, come. I ping assist me. And then they just told me, no, Yuumi can't go on you with TP. Because I said, you could have gone on me, and then I TP, and then they said, no, you can't. I didn't even know that. But anyway. I get blue, come back to mid. And again, Jarvan's going top. That's really good. Now I know where the Jarvan is. You got to process that information, guys. As soon as the enemy jungle shows on a side lane, use that as it's a massive signal. Massive signal to everyone on the game. Everyone, Jarvan's top side. Massive. I know where he's going to be for the next minute at least. I know I can 100% lean bot side. I know very, very easily where he's going to be. Very important. So now that I've got my first item power spike, I'm very happy. Ideally, we want to be playing for dragons. Again, I'm playing around my graves. I need to be playing around my graves. I type in, I ping here, Galio teleport, thinking, because what I was thinking here, I thought that Jarvan maybe was looking topside to go for a dive on Darius. I actually saw that there was a ward here. This is actually quite bad for me. I actually don't like that I was looking for this play in hindsight. I feel like I should actually just let Darius respect. Because I need to play for dragons and play for bot side. He's on our win con. I still think Ezreal Yuumi's our win con. Because I don't think Darius is reliably going to win against this Akali anyway. So I end up playing here with my Graves. Gets a decent chunk. Move my pink here. Because I want to move my pink onto the side of the next objective. He has Rift Herald. Akali comes down. Just playing for Peel here. Get a really big combo. He nearly gets one shot and has to ult out. Okay. So I'm thinking in this fight, I don't have ultimate. If I don't have ultimate, I don't want to... I mean, it's not optimal to fight, but I mean, I'm not a super ult reliant champion, so it's not the end of the world. So look at this. Everyone's posturing around the dragon. My default response in these situations is always mid-wave. Mid-wave. Always push mid-wave first. Because then they either miss CS or you can just go down mid if they commit to dragon. And you can get like 1 or 2 towers, especially if you have Rift Herald. I was thinking of TPing onto that ward, but they weren't committed enough. So you see me hover my cursor over the ward, I'm like, I don't think it's worth it. Now this is really bad. I didn't like this. I saw MFT flash, so I knew I could go in. We get the kill. The reason this is bad is because I wanted them to come to us. Like, Galio's a champion, especially when I don't have ultimate. I want them to come to us. Like, I feel like unless I have Ghost or Flash or something, it's really unreliable because once I go in, I can't get out. Like, if we just start Dragon, I can sit here, and they can't do anything. Like, Akali has no ultimate. Like, I feel like they're too vulnerable to get into the fight. Like, yes, we get this kill, but you'll see what I mean in a second. Get a nice shutdown, and then we just die. I just die on the back end here. I have no idea how that E actually hit Akali. Come on, man. That's kind of... Look at this. How does that E hit? I have no idea how that hits, honestly. And then I die, which is really annoying. But then, what am I straight away thinking about? After I assess my itemization, I'm pinging it TP. I say can TP. I ping my timer, and I say that I have TP. I'm not just mindlessly like thinking about items or whatever. I'm always thinking about the next play here. So I see them. I'm getting ready to TP. I'm up in a few seconds, but they end up just dying, so I can't really TP, unfortunately. So I end up chasing them down, getting a few kills. So it's a very back and forth game. We're actually 8 kills to 15, so it's not looking too good. My bot lane is actually 0-5. But I know that, I mean, we can still win this game. I feel like it's a pretty easily winnable game because I'm very strong. Graves is quite strong. Our front-to-back team fight's really, really strong, and Yuumi's just OP. So I go back mid here. Ideally, I want to be swapping my lane assignments here as well. So I'm just waiting for Ezreal to catch the wave bot and then probably swap. And then Akali goes bot. I end up TPing, thinking that Akali was overextended. Again, we're talking about side lane awareness here. There's no downtime on Galio. She ends up running out. They end up killing Akali, end up just catching the wave here. While I'm here, I say this all the time in my videos, you don't just leave the wave. If you TP to a lane, get the wave out, push it all the way deep. So I stay for the next wave, because again, if I do that, if I don't push these waves out, if you notice every single play I went to, when I went top, I got the wave out. Before I went to the Rift Herald, I got the wave out. Before Dragon, I got the wave out. When I go for this play, I get the wave out. I actually press tab here. Look at when I press tab. I'm actually 2 levels up and nearly 30 CS up on this Karma. Even though the early game wasn't even good for me, purely because in mid game, I've got more farm. Because I value my farm more than Karma. She's playing reactively. She's never pushing waves out. Not valuing waves, but whereas I'm valuing waves. And that just shows you, if you have an emphasis on waves in mid game, it doesn't have to be long, just every now and then. And because I know in this situation, I actually knew that we had killed Akali, MF's here, the Jarvan shows top, so I know no one can come and kill me here. Akali's dead, Karma has no threat, there's Leona, Jarvan, they're not going to go for me. I felt pretty safe walking all the way up here, so I get this ward, Karma ends up showing, I get one more wave, and then catch this wave and then recall. Get a really good base here. So I'm getting really far ahead of Karma right now. So now, after getting that wave, then I swapped the lane assignments. Because I've already committed to that lane assignment. Because I went for that TP. So, we swap. I swapped to... Okay, this is where I was a bit confused. So I was thinking, okay, what do I need? Okay, so I was thinking, I don't need Barrier. I don't need Cleanse. Definitely don't need Smite or anything here. I was thinking, okay, am I going to go Exhaust or am I going to go Ignite? Again, it just really depends what your identity was, and what I felt like in this game, I wasn't going to be diving. I felt like I was going to be peeling. So it's like, Exhaust is probably just a lot better, because if I can keep my Ezreal alive, get that, that Ezreal to 2 items, play this the same team fight with Yuumi, I think we can probably win the fight. So as I'm heading to lanes like this, look at this. As I'm heading to lane, I'm not just panning my camera top mindlessly. I'm always panning my camera mid, just in case, being in ultimate range, assessing my actual ultimate range, just to make sure I'm in range, that sort of thing. So Jarvan comes here. And now this is where another skirmish kind of happens. Interrupt the combo. Use Exhaust here for peel. That's why the strength of Exhaust is. I try to use my Proto Belt here to actually get out of the Leona ultimate. But I just still get stunned. So I have to flash. Otherwise I would have got chain CC'd. Maybe not even. Maybe I still would have survived. I'm not sure. But maybe it would have been close. I think I would have survived, but I would have been really low. So end up going in. Notice how I'm not using my ultimate yet though. So this is important to identify, guys. So in these skirmishes, you don't want to rush to use your ultimate unless they're committed. Okay? The way I view ultimate is I want to use a combo first, then ultimate. Use my ultimate as a reset ability. And then while my cooldowns have come back up, then I get my next combo off. You'll see it in a second, but... or I want it to split the fight. Here, if I use my ultimate here, they're just all going to run out. There's no threat. No one's committed. No one's used their EQ forward. They haven't gone in. It's not going to do anything, okay? So there's no... I'm not splitting the fight for anyone. My Ezreal's not even in the fight yet. So I'm holding on to my ultimate. Yeah, I don't need to go. Don't need to go yet. Playing slow, playing slow. Still not using my ultimate because no one's committed yet. Just playing the front to back. Playing it slow. Playing it slow around my team. Don't want to dive. Using my taunt to peel, trying to peel my team. Then I go here, thinking that maybe, because he's fully committed. He flashes. So you can kind of see what I mean. Like, a lot of the time with Galio, you want to be taking these fights relatively slow, unless you're playing to dive. Here, I mean, ideally it's actually not the best ultimate, because he had already died and they weren't fully committed, but, you can kind of see my intention here. So on the back end of the skirmish, we kind of walk down to Rift Herald. Yes, Darius died, but it's not the end of the world. It's 9 kills to 17, but it still feels like we win front-to-back team fights because Yuumi, Graves, and Galio are such a strong combination. So anyway here, I think Akali TP's back. Ezreal kind of gets engaged on, gets a kill on Jarvan. My thought process here is I just need to play for my team. I can't dive forward. If I dive forward, my backline's going to get assassinated anyway. I need to peel this Akali. If I was versing a champion that wasn't really, I mean, okay, if we lost front to back team fights for some reason, then that's where I need to be a little bit more creative. That's when I need to maybe come in from a flank. Maybe that's where I need to come in with a TP, or I need to position differently to get onto the back line. But if you ever in a position where you win front to back team fights, or you know you have strong scaling, just do what I'm doing now. Sit with the 80 carry, identify the key threats, and all my attention was focused on that Akali. And now, unfortunately, here I boomed my E, which is really, really bad. Akali's end up able to kill the Galio, which is super annoying. End up just killing this Akali, but it comes at the cost of my Ezreal's life as well. So it's not looking good here whatsoever. So then I see my Darius come up, so I'm trying to bait him in, and then up blowing the heal on MF as well, which is really good. And as you can see, this is a very sloppy game. And this is something I always talk about. In high elo games, everyone loves Rift Herald. But in low elo, no one cares about Rift Herald. In high elo, it's just constant fights around Rift Herald because it's such a highly contested objective. So if there's one thing you're going to take from it, if you're able to get free Rift Heralds in your low elo games with your pressure, take them and run, because it's such an amazing objective to take. So I'm sticking around here knowing that there's most likely going to be a Rift Herald fight. I one-shot the way with my Proto Belt, and I come in here. I don't want to give this Rift Herald. So I end up getting this blue. Not too bad. What happens here? End up recalling. Okay. Alright, so look at this. So then, this is very important. I end up selling my Dorans here to finish my Morellos. And again, guys, if you're interested in itemization, go to my other guide, Galio guide. I talk a lot about itemization. Akali goes bot. So my default response isn't to just match her in the side lane, because I know if we match her in the side lane, it's going to be really hard to take a front-to-back team fight. I know my identity as a team composition is next dragon, I'm pinging it, dragons in 30 seconds. I need to be grouped with the team, play the front-to-back team fight, and we could probably win that fight. I don't want to go to the side. I don't want to come in late to a fight. I need to be there from the start to peel with my team. That's what I've identified in this game. So I end up, and notice here, I actually don't swap any of my summoners out. Notice that. This is very important to actually note, guys. So I'm coming out of base here, and I actually press the little Unsealed Spellbook button, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to swap Flash because it's actually got only 2 minutes left, which is actually not much at all. It's actually over halfway the timer, and the choices of the summoners were actually really low value. And I knew that it was going to be a skirmish here, but I thought to myself, if I don't get to use that summoner spell, then I'm going to be stuck with at Ignite, and I'm not going to have Flash up in 30 seconds. So I say to myself, I'm actually going to hold on to them both, knowing that I really want both. Either I want my TP or my Flash on cooldown. That's another little thing. It comes with experience, just identifying what you need. I think I could have definitely gotten Barrier or Ignite or something just for the extra movement speed or for the extra fight strength, but that was just not my. That just wasn't my read on the specific pace of the game. Not pace of the game. I don't think that's the right word to say. I think that wasn't my take on what I needed in this specific moment. I valued my Flash and my TP much higher. So anyway, so I come through down mid here instead of grouping to the side because I don't want to come in late to a fight. Leona gets caught by my E. I get a really good taunt off. Q, look at that. Q auto attack Proto Belt. Or Q Proto Belt auto attack. Look at that. I just burst their entire backline here. And then I back out and play around my cooldowns. Now I go back out, get my ultimate once they're fully committed like that. And then my cooldowns are up again, and then I can rinse repeat. Look at that. This is exactly how you want to play fights. Bang. Go. Combo. Out. Then you want to reposition. Use your ultimate to self-peel once they've committed. Now I go. Beautiful. Bang. And then we play the front to back. That's exactly how you want to play fights onto Galio. And I just won the team fight for my team just by understanding exactly how Galio operates. So I want to play for the dragon. Again, Galio wants to contest all dragons, all objectives, because front to back team fights, people getting caught, that sort of thing. So I see Ezreal here, he's getting engaged by Akali. I'm trying to peel my team. I don't want to fully commit to the Graves because I want to be very close to this this Ezreal as well, but I want to defend this objective, so I'm trying to poke with Q. Now look at this. I sit on the Graves with my taunt, knowing that Akali hits E, get a really good combo, beautiful bang. and then we turn this into mid-wave into Baron. All from my taunts, all from my teamfight assessment. So, end up getting that Baron, come out, I ping my teleport, ping that I have teleport. Look at it, side lane awareness. As soon as I'm coming out of base, I'm not just mindlessly thinking about, oh, you know, what's the weather like? I'm thinking, dude, I gotta, I have TP, I want to use it. So I see Akali, look for a pick in the side lane. My default response is go, go, go with my TP. Whenever I see something, I want to play around my team. I want to utilize my TP. So I go through here. I actually don't assess that she had Zhonya's. I end up booming my E again. But I end up one-shotting her anyway. Chase down, use my proto belt. She ends up flashing. I know that I'm completely fine to chase again. Chase down this Leona. We end up getting this Leona as well. Do we? No. Keep chasing. Yumi. Go, go, go. I see MF. I'm happy to trade flash for flash with MF. So we trade flash for flash. Bang. Another kill. For some reason, Ezreal doesn't get out of the MF ult, so we end up trading kills there. Now what do we see? My Ezreal actually just died. So here, I failed to identify, my Graves pings the gold, 3,500, and my Ezreal's dead. This is really, really bad, because I need to play with my team. I need to play around them. I can't do anything without my Ezreal, and I can't do anything without my Graves being really strong. I end up swapping to Ignite here, knowing that, you know, I'm probably not going to, and I actually choose to swap out my Flash, because it's got 4 minute 35 cooldown. Like, I'm 100% going to use that Ignite before then. So, they end up engaging. What do we know? My Ezreal's dead, so I end up just dying on the back end here. So, that's all bad. And I actually remember this in review. I was thinking to myself, Curtis, you got to play around your AD carry. Why are you trying to make plays or siege when your AD carry is dead? It runs counterintuitive to what Galio wants to do in this game. That's not your win con. So, I end up just dying. Getting punished for it. So, it's a big lesson there. Darius gets caught as well. So now we just have to wait for next objectives. So I even type in chat here, wait for my R. Because I know if I don't have R, I'm probably not going to be able to get to the fights here if I'm in the side lane. So I'm telling my team to wait a little bit. I get the wave out first, then group. Push and move, push and move. I don't want to sit in the side lane. Ideally, I still want to be with my team, front to back, that sort of thing. So they end up trying to... So look at this. Imagine if I was in the side lane with R here. It's so awkward for me to use R. Either they're just going to engage and one-shot them before, like, I mean, and I'm not going to be able to peel this Ezreal, or they're just not going to engage, and then we just lose pressure because they're 5v5. They're 5v4, sorry. So I just think it's better if you want to play front-to-back teamfights just to group with Galio. Kali goes in. I sit on my team with my taunt just to peel, go next target. Notice how I don't use my ultimate yet though, because I feel like my taunt is enough to self-peel. I only want to use my ultimate if I know they're fully committed. I know Jarvan hasn't gone in yet. No one's gone in yet. Then I go. Look at this. Then I use my ultimate there, because I know Jarvan went in. And unlucky, I actually get knocked up by the Jarvan, so it interrupts my ultimate. But I still get the magic shield, which is really big for the Akali going in with the ultimate. End up just escaping here. Ezreal cleans up on the back end. We end up getting a few towers. Beautiful. Turning that into a dragon. We get the dragon. Nothing too exciting here. And notice here again, I don't swap any of my summoners here, guys. Look, notice that, because they're on such low cooldowns. I don't want to swap any of my summoners. Okay. So, again, I'm just grouping with my team. I don't want to go on the side lane. Yes, Karma's bot. Yes, I have TP, but I know this Baron controls better. I want to set up the vision. If they walk in, we're going to look for a pick, that sort of thing. I don't want to be in the side lane. I need to be with my team. So, peel again for my 80 carry. Bang. One shot. We end up pushing it up mid here. Ezreal kind of in, so we throw. Fast forwarding a little bit more, tying up this game together. Oh, this was really clean. Look at this. And it's actually a really important point here. So, my Ezreal throws. They use this as an opportunity to go for Baron. I TP back. I don't have heal. I don't have flash, so I swap it to heal. I come in with my taunt like this. And notice, look at this. I don't commit. Notice how I don't continue to walk in with my ER, whatever. I actually walk out. I know that there's still half HP on the Baron, right? So I know I don't need to fully commit yet. Okay, I've got a Graves. I've got a Darius. We can play front-to-back team fights. The Leona stuns me really nicely, whatever. I back up. I just chill. They're not fully committed yet. Then wait for them to go in. Then I use my R. Get another full combo. One shot. Boom. So look at this. a lot of Galios here would just get this taunt and then they would panic and just like E forward and like whatever. They would just go ham here. Use heal, go crazy. But I thought to myself, so I'm like, well, we're not diving in, am I? I don't have a Jarvan with me. I don't have a Rek'Sai or a Camille. I don't have anyone diving the backline with me. That's not what Galio wants to do in this situation. I need to buy time for the front-to-back team fight with my Darius and my Graves, okay? So, after I get the taunt and I realize it's failed, it's not like the Baron's on low HP. I back up, play around my Graves, wait for my cooldowns to come back up because my taunt's in a few seconds, get in position to use my R, then I go, because I don't want to use my R as well for the first, because Akali uses R1. There, R1. She can't use R2 instantly. So I wait a little bit as well because I want to, again, mitigate that R2 damage and wait for Jarvan to get a little bit closer to engage. Then I R for the R2 damage. I get the knock up. My cooldowns are back up. Taunt onto the backline. Pretty much one-shot their backline. And then we end up acing them and then ending the game. So again, as you can see, I didn't necessarily do anything crazy in the laning phase. I didn't win this game through the laning phase. I understood my role. I played with my jungler's location. I played my skirmishes very clean. And again, I spent a lot of time refining and emphasizing my team fighting and skirmishing. And if that's something you're interested in, or if you are interested in playing Galio, you need to put the time and effort into refining your team fighting and skirmishing. As long as you're coming in with a hypothesis about how you want to play fights, you can refine that over time. Because then you can go into the VOD and be like, oh, I actually think diving here was really bad because no one can follow up anyway, or I can't 100-0, or you realize things like I'm not assessing itemization. I wasn't assessing how we win fights. If you are interested in team fighting, that sort of thing, or game plans in mid-game, I have a video. I'll also link in the description. It's very in-depth about that sort of thing, which might interest you as well. So hopefully you guys get to see and now understand a few of the strengths of Galio, that, you know, understand a little bit why this strategy is so strong and how it differs from the Aftershock setup. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment below or message me on Discord, whatever. Cheers. Thanks for watching, guys.